The paradox of choice. Why more makes you miserable it? If I told you that the explosion of options in modern life, from streaming services to career paths to dating apps, isn't liberating you, but systematically destroying your ability to experience satisfaction? Not opinion. Documented psychological research showing that beyond a certain threshold, more choices create measurable decreases in happiness, decision quality, and life satisfaction. This isn't minimalist lifestyle nonsense. This is hard behavioral science. Researchers studying decision-making and well-being have discovered something counterintuitive. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for evaluating options and making decisions, has finite processing capacity. When overwhelmed with choices, it experiences what neuroscientists call decision fatigue, leading to analysis paralysis, chronic regret, and perpetual dissatisfaction with your selections. Here's what changes everything. Your dopamine system evolved to reward exploration and novelty in environments with limited options. In today's infinite choice landscape, this same system creates perpetual restlessness, always wondering if something better exists just beyond your current selection. You're neurologically designed for scarcity, navigating abundance, which creates systematic misery. Ancient wisdom traditions advocated simplicity, detachment, and contentment with less. Modern neuroscience has revealed the exact mechanisms. Choice overload depletes cognitive resources, triggers opportunity cost anxiety, and prevents the satisfaction consolidation necessary for happiness. I'm about to expose 10 specific protocols for systematically reducing choice exposure and rebuilding your capacity for satisfaction in a world designed to prevent it. Your misery isn't personal failure. It's predictable neuroscience. Time to fix it. Body. The 10 Techniquest. Part 1. Decision Quota Implementation Protocol. You make roughly 35,000 decisions daily, from trivial to significant. Your prefrontal cortex treats each one as requiring cognitive resources. By decision 34, your brain is operating on fumes, which is why you eat junk food at night and doom scroll instead of sleeping. Neuroscientists studying decision fatigue have discovered that your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, your executive function center, depletes glucose with each decision. After sufficient depletion, you default to impulsive choices, status quo bias, or decision avoidance entirely. Every trivial choice you make steals resources from important decisions later. This is technique number 1 out of 10. The Decision Quota Implementation Protocol. Here's your exact practice for 30 days. Identify your 5 most frequent trivial decisions: what to wear, what to eat for breakfast, which route to take, what to watch, which coffee to order. Create permanent defaults for each. Lay out clothes the night before. Eat the same breakfast Monday, Friday. Take the same route. Establish a 3-show rotation. Order your standard drink. Eliminate these decisions completely through automation. The mechanism preserves cognitive resources. By converting recurring trivial decisions into automatic routines, you're reducing the daily load on your prefrontal cortex by potentially hundreds of decisions. This preserved capacity improves decision quality for choices that actually matter. You're essentially budget managing your brain's limited decision-making energy. Start automating trivial decisions immediately and watch decision fatigue decrease while important decision quality improves dramatically. Part 2. Option constraint calibration method. You believe more options increase your odds of finding the optimal choice. Research proves the opposite. Beyond 5 to 7 options, your decision quality decreases. Decision time increases exponentially, and post-decision satisfaction plummets regardless of which option you choose. Studies on choice architecture reveal that your working memory located in your prefrontal cortex can only hold and compare roughly 7 items simultaneously. Beyond this, you can't effectively evaluate options, so you either make arbitrary choices, experience paralysis, or use flawed heuristics. More options don't improve outcomes, they guarantee dissatisfaction. This is technique number 2 out of 10. The option constraint calibration method. Execute this protocol for 45 days. Implement the rule of 3 for all non-critical decisions. When faced with options, restaurants, products, activities, strategies, force yourself to narrow to exactly 3 finalists before detailed evaluation. Spend 90 seconds maximum on initial filtering, then evaluate only your top 3. Make elimination fast and evaluation thorough, not the reverse. Why this works? You're operating within your working memory capacity. By constraining options to 3, your prefrontal cortex can genuinely compare them rather than becoming overwhelmed. This reduces decision anxiety while paradoxically improving decision quality. You're essentially right-sizing decisions for your brain's actual processing capacity. Start limiting all decisions to 3 finalists and watch decision speed increase while post-decision regret decreases. Part 3. Maximizer to satisficer conversion technique. Ray probably a maximizer, someone who believes the optimal choice exists and must be found. Maximizers experience lower life satisfaction, more regret, and higher depression rates than satisficers, people who choose good enough and move on. Research on decision-making styles shows that maximizers activate their anterior cingulate cortex, which monitors for errors and conflicts more intensely during and after decisions. You're essentially running perpetual quality control on your choices, which prevents satisfaction consolidation. Your brain never stops second-guessing, which makes contentment neurologically impossible. This is technique number 3 out of 10. The maximizer to satisficer conversion technique. Your intervention is specific for 60 days. Practice first acceptable decision-making for low-stakes choices. Define minimum acceptable criteria beforehand. A restaurant with good reviews and reasonable prices. Shoes that fit well and look decent. A movie with positive ratings. Choose the first option meeting your criteria without further comparison. When your brain wants to keep searching, notice it. That's maximizing. I chose something acceptable. I'm done. The mechanism retrains decision termination. Each time you stop searching at good enough, you're weakening neural pathways that connect decision-making to exhaustive optimization. Your brain learns that acceptable outcomes don't require optimal processes. You're essentially debugging your perfectionistic decision-making code. Start practicing satisficing on minor decisions and watch satisfaction increase while decision torture decreases. Part 4. Opportunity cost anxiety reduction system. Every choice you make inherently means rejecting alternatives. Your brain obsesses over what you're missing, a phenomenon called opportunity cost consideration. This transforms every selection into a loss experience rather than a gain experience. Neuroscientists studying regret and counterfactual thinking have found that your orbitofrontal cortex continuously simulates unchosen alternatives. The more options you had, the more your brain generates what if scenarios about roads not taken. You literally cannot enjoy what you chose because your brain is busy mourning what you didn't choose. This is technique number 4 out of 10. The opportunity cost anxiety reduction system. Here's your practice. After making any significant decision for 50 days, implement a 10-minute decision closure ritual. Write down your choice and 3 reasons it's good enough. Then physically or digitally close the file, delete the comparison documents, close the tabs. Throw away the other options information. When opportunity cost thoughts arise, say, that file is closed. I'm experiencing this choice now. Why this works, you're training your prefrontal cortex to terminate counterfactual processing. The ritual creates a psychological boundary between decision phase and experience phase. Your orbitofrontal cortex learns that once decided, alternative simulation is no longer productive. You're essentially giving your brain permission to stop comparing and start experiencing. Start implementing decision closure rituals and watch post-decision satisfaction increase as opportunity cost anxiety decreases. Part 5. Reversibility illusion management protocol. You keep decisions open because you fear irreversibility. What if I'm wrong? This fear prevents commitment, which prevents the psychological processes necessary for satisfaction to develop. Ironically, reversible decisions produce less satisfaction than irreversible ones. Research on commitment and satisfaction reveals that your brain doesn't fully invest in outcomes. It perceives as changeable. When you know you can reverse a decision, your ventral striatum, your reward center, doesn't fully engage with the current choice. You remain in evaluation mode rather than experience mode, which blocks satisfaction formation. This is technique number 5 out of 10. The reversibility illusion management protocol. Execute this sequence. Identify 3 areas where you maintain reversibility unnecessarily. Relationships you won't fully commit to. Purchases you can return. Plans you keep backup options for. For 40 days, practice strategic irreversibility. Commit fully to one relationship for 90 days with no exploring alternatives. Keep one purchase past the return window. Decline backup plans to commit to primary plans. Make reversible decisions psychologically irreversible through commitment. The mechanism enables satisfaction consolidation. When your brain perceives a decision as final, It stops comparison processing and begins satisfaction generation. Your reward systems fully engage with the experience mode by removing the psychological escape hatch. Start practicing strategic irreversibility and watch satisfaction increase as your brain stops evaluating and starts experiencing. Part 6. Social comparison elimination method. You are not just comparing choices to each other, you're comparing your choices to everyone else's choices. Social media provides unlimited visibility into alternative lives, making every decision feel potentially suboptimal compared to someone else's reality. Neuroscientists studying social comparison have discovered that your medial prefrontal cortex, which processes self-referential information, activates intensely when you compare yourself to others. Constant social comparison floods your brain with evidence that better choices exist, which systematically undermines satisfaction with your own selections. This is technique number 6 out of 10. The social comparison elimination method. Your protocol is radical. For 75 days, implement strategic social media elimination during decision integration periods. After making any significant choice, new job, relationship commitment, major purchase, life direction, take a complete 14-day break from all social comparison platforms. No Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or any platform showcasing others' curated choices and outcomes. Why this works? You're removing the external comparison data that prevents internal satisfaction formation. Without constant exposure to alternatives and other selections, your brain can evaluate your choice against your own criteria, rather than infinite external benchmarks. You're protecting the satisfaction consolidation process from comparison contamination. Start implementing post-decision social media blackouts and watch satisfaction stabilize without comparison interference. Part 7. Anticipated regret. The sensitization protocol. You don't just fear making wrong choices. You preemptively experience the regret you imagine feeling if you're wrong. This anticipated regret paralyzes decision-making and prevents commitment even after choosing. Research on effective forecasting reveals that your brain systematically overestimates how bad you'll feel if decisions don't work out. Your anterior insula, which processes emotional predictions, generates inflated negative forecasts that don't match actual post-decision emotional experiences. You're being controlled by inaccurate emotional predictions. This is technique number 7 out of 10. The anticipated regret desensitization protocol. Here's your intervention. For 35 days, practice regret reality testing before decisions. Write your anticipated regret. If things go wrong, how bad will you feel? For how long? After decisions that don't work out, document your actual regret. How bad you actually feel. For how long? Compare predicted to actual. Track the systematic gap between imagined and experienced regret across multiple decisions. The mechanism recalibrates emotional forecasting by exposing the consistent gap between anticipated and actual regret. You're training your anterior insula to generate more accurate predictions. Your brain learns that imagined regret is almost always worse than experienced regret. You're debugging your emotional prediction system through data collection. Start tracking predicted versus actual regret and watch decision paralysis decrease as regret loses its inflated psychological power. Part 8. Preference clarity development system. You struggle with choices partially because you don't actually know what you want. You've internalized so many external preferences: what you should want, what others want, what's supposed to be good, that you've lost contact with authentic preference signals. Neuroscientists studying interoception and preference have found that authentic preference emerges from your insula, which processes internal body signals. When disconnected from interoceptive awareness, you default to cognitive evaluation of what makes logical sense, rather than visceral sensing of what actually resonates. You're deciding with your head because you can't access signals from your gut. This is technique number 8 out of 10. The Preference Clarity Development System. Execute this practice for 90 days. Implement somatic preference testing for all decisions. Before evaluating options logically, close your eyes and imagine each option for 30 seconds. Notice your body's response: expansion or contraction, ease or tension, movement toward or away. Document the physical response before the cognitive analysis. When responses conflict with logic, note the discrepancy and explore it rather than automatically overriding body wisdom. With rational analysis. Why this works. You're rebuilding connections between your prefrontal cortex and your interoceptive cortex. Each practice strengthens your capacity to sense authentic preference, rather than cognitively construct what you think you should prefer. You're essentially restoring the body-based guidance system that choice overload has disconnected you from. Start practicing somatic preference testing and watch decision clarity increase as authentic preference signals become accessible. Part 9. Temporal discounting correction method. You evaluate choices based on immediate characteristics while underweighting long-term consequences. This temporal myopia leads you to choose options that seem optimal now but create dissatisfaction later. Research on intertemporal choice reveals that your limbic system processing immediate rewards activates much more intensely than your prefrontal cortex, which evaluates long-term consequences. This creates systematic bias toward short-term optimization at the expense of long-term satisfaction. You're essentially making decisions with a brain designed for immediate survival, not sustained well-being. This is technique number 9 out of 10. The temporal discounting correction method. Your protocol is this. For 55 days, practice 10-year projection before significant decisions. After initial evaluation, ask, which option will I be most satisfied with 10 years from now? Write your prediction. Then evaluate, am I choosing based on immediate appeal or long-term satisfaction? When these conflict, explicitly acknowledge the trade-off rather than unconsciously defaulting to immediate gratification. The mechanism engages long-term thinking. By systematically projecting into the future, you're activating your prefrontal cortex's prospection networks. This counterbalances your limbic system's immediate reward bias. You're essentially forcing your brain to weight long-term consequences rather than letting short-term appeal dominate automatically. Start incorporating 10-year projection into decisions and watch choice quality improve as temporal balance replaces temporal myopia. Part 10. Choice-free zone creation technique. Your life has become an endless series of choices with no respite. Your brain never gets relief from decision-making, which means cognitive resources never fully regenerate. You need systematic choice elimination, not just choice reduction. Neuroscientists studying cognitive recovery have found that your prefrontal cortex requires periods of minimal executive demand to restore glucose and neurotransmitter levels. Without choice-free periods, you operate in perpetual depletion, which compounds decision fatigue across days and weeks. You're never giving your decision-making system time to recover. This is technique number 10 out of 10, the choice-free zone creation technique. Here's your intervention for 100 days. Establish a daily choice-free hour, 60 minutes with 0 decisions. Everything is predetermined. The activity, same walk, same workout, same meditation. The timing, same time daily. The environment, same location. During this hour, you make absolutely no choices. If any decision point arises, you have a pre-established default. This hour is sacred recovery time for your decision-making systems. Why this works? You're creating systematic recovery periods for depleted executive function. During choice-free time, your prefrontal cortex can replenish resources without continuous expenditure. This is arrested strategic recovery that improves subsequent decision-making capacity. You're essentially giving your decision-making system regular maintenance rather than running it until breakdown. Start implementing daily choice-free hours and watch overall decision quality improve through systematic cognitive recovery. Closing these 10 protocols aren't productivity hacks, they're neurologically grounded methods for protecting your brain from the choice overload that modern life systematically inflicts. Decision automation, option constraint, satisficing adoption, opportunity cost management, commitment forcing, comparison elimination, regret recalibration, preference restoration, temporal extension, choice-free recovery. Together, they form a comprehensive defense system against the paradox of choice, the documented phenomenon, where increased options decrease satisfaction. Ancient wisdom traditions advocated simplicity and contentment with limitation. Modern neuroscience has revealed why. Your brain is evolutionarily calibrated for scarcity, not abundance. Infinite choice breaks your decision-making and satisfaction generation systems. Science has proven what monks and minimalists always knew. Freedom isn't found in infinite options, it's found in conscious constraint. Your brain functions optimally within boundaries. Remove those boundaries and you get analysis paralysis, chronic regret, and perpetual dissatisfaction no matter what you choose. Your transformation doesn't start tomorrow or next week. It starts the moment you automate your first trivial decision. Constrain your first option set to 3, or choose good enough instead of continuing the exhausting search for optimal.